Narrative is the storyline or plot of a film. To make a successful narrative, you have to include things like character development. This is how the characters face obstacles and change throughout the narrative. Originality, which is the structure of the narrative and how a director and cinematographer chooses to portray that. Relatable themes, raising questions, character conflict, twists and cliffhangers, contrasts in the characters, subplots in the lead narrative, and the cultural, historical, political and social implications of that narrative. Narrative is also the certain obstacles and events that protagonists will come across during the narrative. Narratives use time in many different compressed ways to portray a longer period of time. Techniques can include flashbacks, time-lapse, in-cards, clock, split screen and lighting techniques. The film's perspective is normally from the point of view of the protagonist, who is normally the narrator figure in the film. This helps the audience to see the story from their point, so they're able to empathise with this character as the audience have to like them. Narratives are created by using visual codes such as lighting, mise-en-scène, editing, etc. Narrative graphs make it look simpler to break down a narrative structure. They can look something like this, but this is only a very simplified version. They start with the exposition, which consists of an equilibrium using Todorow's theory to understand how the character's world is before any disruptions. We also see the setting and location, normally shown by establishing shots. We then move on to the development of the narrative, where more characters are introduced. This is normally where a disequilibrium or discovery happens, where complication arises. After this point, the protagonist must overcome multiple obstacles, which can be mental and/or physical. They must be difficult but still possible to handle, so eventually their imbalanced world can work back to the restoration of equilibrium. Meanwhile, subplots will be taking place where supporting parts have complications of their own, which intervene with the protagonist at some point in the narrative. The last stage is the resolution, which consists of a climax or anticlimax, which can fool the audience into thinking it's the end before another twist happens, so that the tension would drop just to build it even more. This normally creates an enigma which is exciting for the audience. Audiences like to be surprised with what they're seeing. Like I said, originality is one of the big points. This climax section is normally where we reminisce as an audience member how the character has developed, changed, or the lack of this, and how their journey has impacted them, and this is the point where the director will want the audience to raise questions about the narrative as the film finishes. To make a successful and intriguing narrative, it must depict some form of dramatic tension. Telegraphing, either known as pointing or advertising, false telegraphing can also be used to lead the audience to be deceived from the truth. A dangling cause, an event that is suspended until later, creating a small cliffhanger, and dramatic irony. So this has been a short explanation of what narrative is and how and why it's used.